Hello and welcome back to the Cube Circus. Today is episode number 6, where I am joined, as always, by Denish, who is a Hella player and known Stardust lover. Keep in mind that card is coming out very soon. And Xenaid, who is a known ongoing connoisseur, pioneering some of the greatest deck creations we have ever seen, such as ongoing Sauron and Patriot Sauron. So, today's episode, we've got two main topics for you. We've got archetype support. So, a lot of archetypes have kind of gone by the wayside. Snap's been around now for almost 3 years, which is kind of crazy to say. But in a lot of the archetypes that the game used to support very well, now have kind of like fallen off. And we're here to sort of discuss what those archetypes really need. And second of all, we're going to be covering how you can improve your Snap game. What do we think about today's topics?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
excited to touch on some archetypes we've never really talked about on here. I know
yeah,
there's quite a few. There's a lot of really ignored cards because Second Dinner doesn't want to release synergies. They would just want to release mid-range cards.
yeah. You also don't make any money when you update old cards. Like I already own that. Why would I buy it?
Exactly. But
We've also seen them detract from some old cards like Sauron to make room for Nightmare.
Yeah,
yeah,
terrible. Why would they do
Terrible.
that?
I
If you want to
really
see
don't like.
more on Sauron and Nightmare as well, you can check the Snap Academy YouTube channel. Xenaid has graciously done a full and complete Sauron archetype breakdown, so check that out if you're interested. Anyways, on to the first archetype support, Zoo. So, I have been playing actually quite a bit of Zoo over the last few days, trying to figure out, see what I like about it, what it needs, and I've settled on an Ancient One Zoo list that I actually think is fairly decent. But some of these cards are very, very lacking. First, I'd like to say Zoo has a lower point ceiling than almost every solid mid range deck. Surfer can go taller, V-Hand can go taller. All those decks can go really, really tall, and Zoo just has like a ceiling. It's got a defined ceiling. Even with Ancient One, you're gonna need like 30. You're gonna get like 30 points in 2 lanes, and then maybe one big lane. They can beat that by committing like 40, 40, 10 because it's pretty obvious where your big lane is. But I think that Zoo has a few silver linings here. I'll discuss them in a bit. But what do you guys think is the main problem with Zoo?
Well, as a Sauron player here, like I think Secondary's approach towards Zoo is like it's not meant to be super good, but it kind of sucks like when new cards are released that like fit into the archetype because it's not fun to play those new cards as well. I think the presence of Zoo is like made worse just because of A, the existence of Thanos, and B, the existence of Killmonger. I think when Zoo is good, you kind of have to worry how it fits into Thanos and wondering if they use that shell a little bit better. And then also this card Killmonger just like kills Zoo and it's just slotted in random decks.
Yeah, I think dying to Killmonger immediately is tough, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. I think Zoo could play around it even if like you had a really hostile meta. But the fact that we only have like other than cards that buff one drops, the only real card that buffs the board is Blue Marvel. I don't think there's any I'm missing. I mean, you can obviously double Blue Marvel, but the fact that it's just Blue Marvel, we almost need more ways to engage the Zoo decks. Like if we had a card that buffed two drops even, that would be fine. Because I feel like the Killmonger is a big deal, but the fact that we're putting so much, it's almost an issue of putting all your eggs in one basket. Whereas you're not really getting that much of a payoff because you're still only playing one cost cards. So your biggest lane is Gilgamesh. And then from my experience, it's like 20, 25 pretty consistently.
Yeah, I think like if you're trying to go wide, it's just better to play Tribunal at this point but that deck has its own weaknesses. I think the recent direction with Zoo and the things that like have supported Zoo the most are actually things that can go really tall in a lane. Because I've been seeing Zoo play the Thing first steps as well, and it's like, okay, well, can you be rewarded for filling the lane and going tall? And I think that might be an interesting thing for the direction of Zoo to take. Because if you look at Gilgamesh, Mockingbird, right, those are ways for Zoo to go tall, and they're rewarded by them going wide. If you can play the Squirrel Girl, the Shen out early, then the Mockingbird becomes free, and it's a free 9 power, right? It's a Gilgamesh, like he gets buffed from having more power on the board with Blue Marvel. I think it's probably inherently an issue with 5 and 6 drops being really hard to just play, unless you can get some significant way of discounting them, I believe. But yeah, I don't see Zoo going wide a lot of the times in the meta. When I see Zoo deck, I'm kind of scared of like that last slot they have in their open lanes.
Yeah, so I think Zoo has a couple of different variations. I have seen some the thing for step Zoo. The main Zoo that I've been playing to pretty good success on ladder over the last few days is Ancient One Zoo. So the idea with this deck is basically I have triple blue Marvel, I have a Cerebro buff in 2 lanes, and I have +9 in an. I pretty much have a Cerebro buff across the entire field without having to worry about filling the condition. And I can play like Shauna plus Tau plus Squirrel Girl on 6 to dodge Prio, so Killmonger doesn't kill me that hard. And I can just vomit out a ton of power, which is strong, and it is tough to tech against. That being said, the points that it outputs, and that is a pretty good high roll for you. The points that outputs, while high, aren't really high enough for a high roll, I believe. So I think the issue with Zoo is I think there's 2 main issues, personally. I think it needs another buffer. I think it needs something that also can have cards sort of go a little bit taller. And I think the second issue with Zoo is I kind of want another board filler, in the sense that I want to be playing my 1 drops late. I know I talked to a very good Zoo player a decent amount of the time. It's Tubes Dopisada. You can find him in the main Discord. He plays Shauna under Invisible Woman in Zoo because he doesn't want it to get Killmongered, and just being able to go through, play essentially 4 cards for 3 energy on 6 when your opponent can't really tech against it is very strong.
And I mean, it's not like Zoo doesn't have good cards. Shauna is usually playing as like a 3/10, which is very overstated. But it's just it's like the culmination of mid. It's like a like nothing is exceptional. Everything's just okay. Like even their big guys, it's like it's a 410 or it's a 717. Where there's other things that do this. It's just kind of taking all the mid stuff and putting it in a pile. Whereas you can once again, yeah, get like a tribunal where it goes way taller and wider. I'm personally not the biggest fan of Zoo. I've called it the Lego Zoo, the Lego Duplo of Marvel Snap. I think it's kind of not. I find it brain dead. My gambits hit squirrels. I'm not happy playing against Zoo. So I mean, I'm not upset by it being lower on the power level, especially because I think it's generally conceived to be a little bit easier. But if you add some kind of card that makes it more skill based, almost like a turn 2 card that buffs maybe like some kind of 2/0 that buffs specifically Blue Marvel by 5 or something. Obviously not that specifically, but something where you have to make an early commitment for late power and you have to determine the lane really early. I think that's the route I would want to see them take. I don't have any like cards brainstormed for that, but design-wise, that's the way I hope they take Zoo, is make it a little bit more difficult to play.
Yeah, I think it's not meant to be very hard. I think it's supposed to be meant to be like very easy access. So I don't really mind it being in the spot where it's at. The problem being just that like if there's a new card that is supported by it, a lot of the power is like in those high cost cards, and I think we've talked about it multiple times on the podcast. It's hard to play high cost cards and make them feel like it's worth it. I mean, what Smlz described was like a 4 card combo to get what essentially what Cerebro does in 1 card. It's like, oh yeah, we play Ancient One, we fill the lane, we play Blue Marvel, and then we can Tau Mandala it to get 3 on every card. I know the restrictions are much less, but also getting that 4 card combo in that order is very telegraphed as well. Like, I'm pretty sure I'd be in Smlz just by juggernauting the Blue Marvel lane, because it's really obvious where it's going to be.
Yeah, I did get juggernauted by Xenaid. I was working a 50-50 to play it in one of two lanes, and he picked the right one. So, going over the overview of the zoo cards, there's four main types of zoo cards. I'll start with the fillers. The fillers are Squirrel Girl and Shauna. These are where you generate most of your one-cost cards. They're how you get the cards on the board, basically. Then you have the tech, and the tech is just Kyra. It stops you from dying to Killmonger. It's your biggest weakness. You can run it if you want in a heavy Killmonger meta. Next, we've got the buffers, of which there are three. There is Khazar, Blue Marvel, and Marvel Boy. These are the cards that scale up your small guys to being big and scale like a 1-1 to being like a 1-7 or 8 by the end of the game. And lastly, the part where I don't think Zoo is lacking on, the power. So with power, you've got Gilgamesh, which is pretty much 5 win a lane. You've got Mockingbird, who can get cheap occasionally. You've got Cull Obsidian, who's pretty much an unconditional 4/10 in the deck. And then you've got Ancient One / Onslaught. I put them sort of together because they're effectively doing the same thing. They're multiplying your Blue Marvel buffs. That's just what they're doing. So, now I'm going to propose the support. So I was thinking with Zoo, like, I've been playing, I was like, what do I want in this deck? Like, what can I add that would give this deck up a notch? And I'm going to propose something that's perhaps too strong and that we can perhaps look at weakening a bit until it's in a balanced position. I think it's a little bit too strong. But my idea is sort of like a cannon card. I called it the Bob Cannon. And it's a 3/2, end of turn. It says, end of turn, add a Bob to a random location like on your side. Like it just, like it's pretty much Doom 2099, where it adds a Doombot. Bob Cannon would add a Bob. And Bob Cannon says, end of turn, and the Bob is a 1/0, and it says, end of turn, this gets +1 power. So, this is effectively playing for 5 board slots, 3/12. So what would it would do is the cannon is a 3/2, the Bobs are 1/4, 1/3, 1/2, 1/1 at the end of the game, and all of the sort of Bobs are end of turn, so they do get buffed by stuff like Fantastic Art, which is very powerful. But it also takes up 5 board slots. I want something like that for Zoo, in the sense that you have to commit. You have to like sort of plan on the fly. You have to plan around where they're going to. If they land here, what's going to happen? If they land here, what's going to happen? You get a significant amount of power with the Bobs, and with the Fantastic Car is what I'm thinking is might be a little bit too strong. But I think that that's the direction I want Zoo to take. I want it to change more into an adaptability deck where you're sort of, you have your game pieces, but you need to like go on the fly about where to really put your points, and you've got to commit heavier to some lanes than others, and you've got to sort of play around that and manage that. So now I'm just opening the floor. What do you guys think about that card? Do you think I'm correct about what Zoo needs? Denish, you can go first.
Yeah, I like the concept of the Bob Cannon. I think 312 is a bit strong because like the biggest threes we have right now are generally around 310. But also like especially if we're letting it get buffed by Fantasticar. But I also think the issue with it power-wise would be Mockingbird. I think Mockingbird might be the valve that's limiting them design-wise with this. Because if you're doing that, you just get a free Mockingbird every game. As long as you play like one or two extra created cards or not start on deck cards. I think maybe if they rework Mockingbird, it would make it a little easier to not make it broken. Because you definitely want Mockingbird in that list. What that list would be is you play the cannon, and then you play only buff cards, and then you let maybe like one drop to get early curve, and then like I guess I don't even know if you run Dazzler anymore, but Dazzler at 2/8, like it's another thing where like Zoo doesn't have bad cards. It's just Zoo doesn't have anything particularly good they're doing. Where I think a 312 Bob Cannon is a really cool idea, and it lets it go a little taller. And I mean, that's a Michael card if I've ever seen one. That's the Bob Cannon. You should message Michael about that on the balance team and see what he thinks. But I mean, I'm almost wondering if the reason they're not expanding on Zoo is Mockingbird, because Mockingbird is a really strong card.
Yeah, I think Mockingbird's probably like one of the biggest reasons. It's also like Zoo gets punished way too easily. And like all their payoffs are expensive, and it's hard to find things like good things to do in the first few turns. Like, are you really happy if your turn one play is Squirtle Girl? Because then like usually you're playing that card to what, either destroy them and get like a free death, or you're trying to get like interact with priority, right? So if it destroys an archetype, Zoo is always just like dead in the water. So that must be like what pool one, two meta is like. You like get in, you're playing Zoo, you're like, oh, I'm filling the board. Oh, I'm doing good. And then someone stumbles around upon Killmonger, and then all of a sudden, like, man, this Zoo deck is like, man, I'm unplayable every single game. Like, I don't know what the pool 1-2 meta is, but all I know is these changes probably won't affect the new players who can't buy any of the cards anyway. And no one's really trying to play Zoo at the high level, except for maybe, if you guys remember Cleanup 141, he was playing like Zoo. He was the original Invisible Woman Killmonger Shane guy. But yeah, I don't see like. I think you're the first person, Smlz, I've like heard actually want to invest in Zoo.
Yeah, I think Zoo's a cool deck. Well, first of all, the reason I picked up Zoo is because I adore the Ancient One as a card since the buff. I think it's a really underrated card. I think it's a really fun card. I think it's a really rewarding card for deck building. And I think Ancient One Blue Marvel Zoo is good. I mean, Zoo just recently got a support in Herbie as well. Herbie's a good Zoo card. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts. That card is in the 12 for Zoo. It's good. It's a good support card, just like Hydra Bob. But I think that although I'll go back to the Bob Cannon here, I think 312 is a little bit too strong. Maybe you can make the Bobs, maybe instead of an end of turn, the Bobs can be ongoing, and the cannon can still be end of turn, and maybe make the cannon a 3-1 or something like that. So that way you can also double the Bob buffs, and you can get just a ton of Bob on the board. It's a bit of a different card, and it's not like the Fantasticar super crazy card, but I still think it's interesting. What I'm really saying with the cannon is I want a card for Zoo that fills the board but makes it a little bit trickier to play around. And I agree with the Mockingbird thing. I'm starting to become more and more of the belief that they should just completely rework Mockingbird into like a Victoria hand thing, into the sense that it only works for created cards in your hand, and then maybe make it like a 4/7 or something like that. I think that Mockingbird has shown problems in Thanos. If it's restricting the design space in Zoo, I think that's another issue. And I really think just if Mockingbird is truly keeping the design is making Thanos and Zoo much harder to design new cards for, I think that card should definitely take a hit in a full rework sense, and that it might not be healthy for the game.
To be fair, I
Yeah.
don't think anyone on the design team is looking at Zoo and being like, how do we make this deck better? Because that's like looking at a lot of Zoo's just tier 1, tier 2 cards, right? And what's the most interesting card here? It's probably just Gilgamesh, right? So I guess they're looking at it and probably be like, how do I make Gilgamesh better? Which I could see like, oh, because they're not like looking at it and be like, how do I make Khazar better? How do I make Blue Marvel better? I think the state those cards are in are probably like where they want them to be. So like, what are the payoffs that they're actually trying to improve, right? And I think it's just Gilgamesh, or like I wish we could run Clea in Zoo. Like, what are the existing cards that like are interesting enough for them to want to invest in Zoo?
Yep, but I don't feel like Gilgamesh is a problem, to be honest. I've always found I'm losing the Gilgamesh lane and winning the other two, pretty much no matter where they put it.
Yeah, I just don't know like what interest there is, because it's like they're a design team. They have to invest the resources on something, right? I just don't see like what reason they would have to invest in Zoo, especially like since we don't have the input of any pool 1, pool 2ers. But Smlz, I heard you're gonna make a new account and then climb to infinite top 100 with Zoo. So maybe
Oh, I did that today.
I didn't say top 100 zoo. I said, so I'll just elaborate. I'm thinking about, oh, by the way, leave your feedback on this if you want. I'm thinking about starting a new account soon, getting to about 5, 6K collector level, like not playing ladder, just like throwing, staying pre-infinite, basically not playing the game. So when I'm facing not bots and I'm facing real players, I start at like 13 bronze on the ladder, and then for new players to show like here's how you get to infinite. Here's just a step-by-step guide. I'm doing it in your shoes. I'm gonna talk through all my plays. Might stream it all on Twitch. We'll see. I think I fixed my stream setup, but basically the concept is I get in a new player's shoes completely, and I get to infinite without like matching up against all bots. Like I'm playing against real players on the way there.
Yeah, I'm doing a very similar thing right now. I started today. I haven't told you guys about this, but I've got a fresh account that I started today, and the plan is just to rush it to top infinite. I'm trying to prove a point that matchmaking is messed up, so it's kind of a different motive. But I mean, I think if we all do that and then we can give like almost status updates on the podcast, that could be a fun little segment. Xenaid, is that something you're interested in?
You're telling me to split my time. I don't have that much time to play this game, you guys. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I gotta min max the cube game.
That's
Um,
Yeah, but you don't need to put too much time into it. You could just do like not even the dailies, just literally log in, get like maybe enough credits. I don't know, even if it's like 100 collection level a week, that it won't take too long, and I mean you'll be semi-competitive. I'll be doing it. I know Smlz is doing it. So even if you don't want to, you can make fun of us and we could carry the segment. But I
I
mean,
mean, I
if
could
people
I could do it. It's just like I don't press buttons that don't gain me cubes or lose me cubes, and pressing the logout button seems to be like a tough time. But
yeah, today
like
was
I'm not one for dailies. Like I forget dailies a lot. Um, so we'll see if my attention span can keep engaged with that, because I did the climb from 10 to like infinite more recently than you guys, because I quit the game and came back. I like hate my life. I hated my life every minute of it. I was so bored.
Yeah, the logout button is it's the first time I've pressed it today. Um,
Yeah,
right.
that's so based. But yeah, I just don't like the new player experience. Like, I mean, if I find an interesting enough deck to do it, but that'll probably move on to your segment and not the zoo segment, because I don't know if I'm playing zoo and dying to Killmonger all the way up to infinite.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm literally running the starter deck. I don't like I in my so every month new players get a free Series 3 card if they're not Series 3
Yeah.
complete. And the first one offered was Mockingbird. No, not Mockingbird. Patriot. And I was considering running Patriot Zoo all the way up to Infinite, and then I thought about it, and I thought, huh, I kind of don't want to do that. And so my new plan is just to sit on the shop until I get all the hella cards, and then I'm gonna be a top player, like top Infinite player. I'll be like Dark Razor. I'll be in his MMR bracket. That's the whole goal.
So Sword is Series 3, right? But none of the
Yeah,
cards that
Soren's.
support him are.
Yeah, you could play Sauron. That would be perfect.
That'd be so ill. I have to play Soren without Surge and Fantastic, the cards carrying it. Hey, are you wait? You're not even, because you're not even a regular season pass buyer, right? So you can't even
Nope.
like. So I'm not allowed to buy season pass as a new player, or what?
I mean, you could do what you want. It's your account. I'm not buying anything as the new player. My entire goal is literally climb to about 1,200 collection level, and then I'll have unlocked my entire Hella deck, and then I'm just gonna play ladder up to like top five. I'll do what Razor does, cause
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. I may take us up on this offer. By that I mean I'm logging into a new account right now as we speak. Anyways, let's move on to the next slide. Smlz, are you alive?
Yes, I am alive, albeit I'm having a little bit of mic trouble, so I apologize if my mic quality is a little bit worse than normal this episode. There was an error pre-production for me. It's going to be okay. So, the next archetype we have is the one that Xenaid wanted to talk about, which I found a little funny because me and Denish play this archetype a lot. It's Ramp. And I'll let Xenaid take it away.
Bro, like I like deck building. Ramp is just like giga like terrible to deck build. Like I want to I'm the Sauron player. I want to play big stuff and feel good about it. But there's just something about playing one card a turn like that just doesn't work. And I feel like Ramp, like you're looking at these cards, like most of the time the payoff you're getting, like Luna Snow is the playable one. But the other ones, the payoff you're getting is not like worth the investment. Like for example, Jennifer Kale, every time Red Guardian meta, this card's just gonna be like a sitting duck in the water. And then Electro, like they buffed it by 1 power, but like this card is only being used to play Galactus. So like I've been trying to make Electro Misery work for the longest time, but then I realized I'm just doing extra work for a Wiccan deck, and I'm like, and the Wiccan deck building doesn't like intrigue me that much because you have to spend half your deck being low curve in order to make sure that he goes off, which I guess is the opportunity cost for running the Wiccan. But I'm just like not sure like what the hell am I ramping into? Like if not Sarah, and that's just boring.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of ramping into Sarah either. I don't think that really counts as a ramp deck. I've been a ramp connoisseur for a very long time. The only good, like really, really good ramp card right now, I think, is Corvus. And the reason is when you're playing a 3 cost or even a 2 cost ramp card, you need the ramp card not only to be ramping you, but also to be almost doing something else as well, which is the reason Luna Snow is also finding a little bit of value. Because Luna Snow at least isn't giving you active downside for ramping. And by ramping, I mean permanent energy, not just +1 next turn from Kale. I haven't built with Kale. I think Kale works in Tribunal. I don't think Kale is a ramp card necessarily. I think it's more of just a combo high-end card where if you need it, you can run it. But the two real good ramp cards we have right now are Luna and Corvus, and I do think another one would be interesting to look into. Electro as a card, my issue with it is it's forcing you to play that high-end ramp where you are playing 1 card per turn, which I actually don't think is the right way to build ramp decks because you almost want what ramp decks let you do is they let you play a 5 early, a 6 early, and then your turn 6 is where it gets really disgusting because 7 energy on turn 6 lets you split your turn either a 5 cost and a 2 cost or a 3 cost and a 4 cost, or even if you really want, you could do a 6 and a 1, which is getting rid of the downside of these cards of usually, oh, I'm playing it alone on the last turn. I can't add any power to the other lane. There's no mix-up. If they win all 3 lanes on 5, I can't win anymore because my 6 drop can't go wide. Whereas I think potential future ramp cards, I haven't brainstormed any future ramp enablers, but anything that doesn't give immediate downside to every single deck it's in, similar to a Corvus. Maybe even like we have X23, which is also a very good ramp card, but these are very archetype gated. Whereas X23 goes in like Galactus and Destroy. Corvus goes in discard and hella discard. Where like Luna Snow is a lot more open, but it's not necessarily giving you the upside of the other cards that you almost need your ramper to give you. I think if we're going for a more generic archetype of ramp, where it's like, oh, I'm literally just ramping, that's my whole thing, we definitely need stronger support cards, as in, like, well, I guess we could touch on this after we get your opinions on the 3 drops. But if we're going to go with direct ramp as an archetype rather than ramp as a support feature for, like, existing archetypes, like a Hela or a Destroy, that choose to tech into ramp because it's strong, if we're going for just a ramp deck, we also need stronger 5 drops, but we could touch on that after we talk about some potential future ramp enablers.
So I've been playing Ramp pretty much since March. Ever since I started picking up Hella, I've been a Ramp enjoyer and I've been really trying to get into as many decks as I can. The three costs that ramp are Luna, Electro, and Corvus. Now, I think Corvus and Luna is definitely the good ramp cards. Denish is correct in that. Electro is bad, and I'll touch on why later. Luna is good because it's one, a 3/6, and a 2, it doesn't ask you anything to ramp. You're giving your opponent energy, so it's not as powerful of a one-sided effect, but you're not giving an active downside to your own sandcastle by playing Luna Snow. Corvus, you're giving a little bit of a downside. That can also be an upside if you're playing in Hela. So, basically, the successful ramp cards don't interfere with your game plan and still give you ramp. That's the good ramp cards. Now let's talk about Electro. You can only play one card per turn. That is a crippling downside for ramp. Because what 7 are you ramping out? I mean, yes, you can play a 6 on 5, but you're also wasting energy. I mean, a lot of the power with these ramp decks is being able to go, I mean, with Luna IU V-Hand ramp. Your last turn, a lot of the time, looks like some combination of 2s and 1s. So, you can't do that with Electro. Electro, you just can't do that. With Corvus ramp, you're really ramping into a sense that, like, last turn you can do Blade plus Hela, or Gambit plus Jubilee, Gambit Ghost Rider. The 7 energy is very flexible there. Electro pretty much only gives you ramp on 4 and 5. And then on 6, it's kind of just like, I can only play one card now. This is just really bad for me. I'm not ramping into anything anymore. I think that he has a little bit too much of a drawback. And I think if you really want to make ramp good as well, you need payoffs. I mean, just look at the current 5 drops you've got for ramp. Blank is running ramp decks. Blank should be running like almost every heavy ramp deck. Not sort of pseudo ramp decks like the IU deck, but more like heavy ramp decks. IU used to be one of these heavy ramp cards. You're not giving enough strong 5-cost payoffs to ramp into, and I know the devs said they were going to touch on 5 drops when they changed Kale in the last OTA. We'll see if they follow up on that. I think the devs want to make ramp better. I think they know it's in not a great place right now, but I think that to do this, they need 2 things. One, they need to print another one of the not an active downside 3-cost ramp cards. Here's a simple one I've been floating around for a while. 3/4 when this moves, +1 energy next turn. Works with stuff like Zorn. Works in like Red Wing decks. I think that's a good ramp card. And I also think we need stronger 5 drops, as Denish touched on.
Yeah, I think the solution of giving move decks extra ramp might not be the greatest idea, considering move is a very good archetype on its own. But I think the problem is really like Electro, right? Because you want to be able to run multiple cards that ramp you. Like Dennis was saying, Kale isn't actually a ramp card. However, Luna is a very effective ramp card because it stays up. And then Electro, like I'm pretty sure Electro could be a 3/6 in these metas with the power creep. I don't think he would even see play at a 3/6 because they buffed him from 3/3 to 3/4, and still the most important thing you want to do with him is get rid of him, right? You're playing Electro with Blink. That's like the best card to ramp him into, so his power almost doesn't matter. It was like thinking like you make him a 3 -1, and then you could ramp into a Nihilus, and that would just be the. I've been thinking every month or so, I think once or twice about playing Electro Viper Jeff, and I was like, I'll Electro turn 3 and then play the Jeff. Maybe I won't lose that much tempo, and that seems really toxic. But you can still lose the game after doing that because you spent your first 3 turns doing nothing. I think the problem, like with Electro, in lies also. There's no good 5-drop, and there's no benefit from having like extra energy, right? Like the Fallen one, the card coming out, that's actually saying like for each a power this has, give energy. It'd be cool if like there was a card that rewarded you for having energy, because like that's a fun thing to do, Like I've played Misery Electro Fire Hair decks where I just have like 7 energy, 8 energy. but there's no card that actually rewards you for having that much energy. The other thing I was thinking about potential support for Electro is actually just making War Machine a 5-drop and killing two birds with one stone, getting rid of this Storm War Machine Legion stuff. If War Machine was a better card at 5, then it seems in line with exactly what Electro wants to do. Because a lot of Electro decks are running War Machine anyway, but it's a 4-drop. And so like it feels kind of wasteful, but if you can open more design space by making it a 5-drop, I think it aligns with the ramp plan a lot better.
Yeah, my concern with making War Machine a 5-drop is it kind of ruins him in every deck that isn't ramp. Whereas I don't necessarily think we need to create cards that are exclusively ramp cards. Even cards like, for example, Infinite, you'd think, oh, well, that's obviously just a Hela card. It's started to see play in like many other decks, Red Wing. It's getting cheated out by Blink in just normal decks sometimes, well, like homebrews. I don't think making War Machine a 5-drop is good for War Machine, even if you're making him like a 5/10, which is where I think you'd want to put him, is 5/10-ish. Also, that is actually he'd have to be 5/9 because 5/10 is terrifying. Imagine if you could in a Scar deck play a 5/10 into a 6/20, like that's pretty strong. But or like a Surtur deck rather. I do think the issue with Electro though is we need like one more really powerful 5-drop that enables Electro. Right now we have Cersei, Blink, and Misery. Misery doesn't feel worth it, although unless you're getting value from a 1-drop as well, which then you have to lower your curve for Electro, which turns into a Wiccan deck.
But you can't play Misery in a 1-drop because of Electro.
Right, but I'm saying you play the 1-drop on 1 and then you can Misery it later.
Oh yeah, or you play with Firehair. So I guess like I Hood, Firehair, Electro, Misery was a concept I like explored. Also like if you play Merlin, like it's a concept that that's been explored, but it just the tempo loss from playing the Electro is just as bad as like playing a Nightmare, and the payoff is big. So I don't see like that, but I also like wish there was a way to turn its downside into an upside. Aside from just sending it to the opponents, right? Because
that's what I was thinking.
Because technically, you could trigger Old Sandman by ramping up energy with Luna, and then Electro Viper on 5. You know, and that's a pretty base play. I think that's a new direction for ramp.
Yeah, my thought would be make him like a 3-1, and then that's terrifying. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's healthy.
Oh, that's hot. That's not. Having him decided by Electro into a Nihilist.
That would be another support card, and it would make him good, though. I think, yeah, you need to make a 5-drop that enables him that isn't Cersei, because Cersei's awful. Blinking into Electro is really good, but you only have one blink. Like, when I'm playing Blink Electro, I snap that. But that's like the only 5-drop he has that actually feels good to support him.
Yeah.
So maybe give him, I don't even know, a 5-drop that has a relatively big body. This is actually the Patriot card I want too, which is the archetype we're touching in a second. That removes abilities from both sides of the boards here. Like one ability from one card from each side of the board.
Yeah, like if Cosmic Ghost Rider was like both sides, it'd be interesting to like ramp Electro into Cosmic Ghost Rider to turn that into like a upside even. Because that'd be really cool actually, I think. I think Electro should not have more power. Like, I honestly, if they made him a 3/1, then you could play him with like Ravonna even, and then like do something else with him in the same turn, right? Even as a 3/4, he's harder to Merlin. So I was playing with like Merlin Electro ramp decks where like you delay the Electro for one turn, but you can like polymorph him or like you will Cersei him the next turn or something. Anyway, but yeah, I think like he doesn't even work with Lady Deathstrike now. So like. I think he actually just got worse as a 3/4 because having Electro on the board is a lose condition.
Yep. I think 3/4 is absolutely not actually a buff. I can't see.
I would rather do
how-
3/1. Like maybe played with Ravonna.
I would also strongly prefer 3/1, which is funny. I think a lot of the time, especially at the 9 powers stat line, people think, oh, well, we're just decreasing the power. It can't be a buff, because like even with like the Shang thing, people go to 9 power. People say take the 5/10 to a 5/9 as a buff, and like that's never been proven to actually be a buff. I think if it's a card like Electro where you're building your deck around him being like ruined almost, like getting rid of him, I think decreasing his power is way better than increasing his power. Unless you have like a Cersei rework that adds the power from the original card or something like that, I can't see him going up being a good thing for the card ever. In power at least.
Yeah, I think Electro is just like want to play big things, but I think we're gonna move on to our next section.
Yeah, I think Electro needs a bit of help. I mean, even the one side Cosmic, even the both sides Cosmic Ghost Rider idea, I think it's better to just play 2-drop into Luna into the same lane into Cosmic Ghost Rider to clog them with the Ice Cube. I just think that Electro needs something. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about, because Patriot is another card that just needs something. I mean, the cards that you typically see with Patriot, obviously Patriot Ultron. It's a tried and true classic combo. We've got Blue Marvel, which also buffs up your board. You want that you're Ultroning. It's a good idea. Moonstone, which doubles the Patriot buff, and Wasp, which is effectively a at least 0/3 in whatever lane you wish. Denish, you were the one that brought up Patriot as something you wanted to see buffed. Take it away.
Yeah, Patriot's one of my favorite archetypes. I don't love that they've kind of shoehorned him into, oh, it's an Ultron deck. I think it's interesting, but also Patriot doesn't have enough power anymore. Like, how does Cerebro get +3 but Patriot doesn't? Patriot doesn't work with like anything except Ultron. And Ultron Patriot lanes are like 16 power in the drone lanes, unless you can double the Patriot. That's just not enough. The route I want to see them take with Patriot is we get more no card ability cards, almost like a Sauron, but you can't use it with Sauron to great success unless you are freaking awesome like Xenaid. You can't really play like Patriot Sauron because you're either buff you're it's just not worth the payoff to play a 5/16 rather than a 5/14. But I want more power on my Patriot cards, and I also want more ways to remove cards' abilities. We've had Ancient One that has given us a way to turn no ability cards into ongoing cards. I want to turn cards that are on the board into no ability cards. That's what I want to see. Almost like an Alioth for your own side. So the other issue with Patriot, obviously, other than being weak as hell, is it dies really hard to Enchantress or Rogue. Even Rogue, but nobody runs Rogue anymore. Or Red Guardian or Red Guardian, because you can't even protect your Patriot with Wasp, because the Wasp just ends up being bigger than the Patriot once you play the Wasp. And so it's really hard to protect yourself from Red Guardian. And I think you'd be able to run a Sam Shield if we had a card that could remove the Sam Shield's ability. But I am curious what you guys think Patriot actually needs. Let's hear Smlz.
I am also a big fan of Patriot. I spent 1,000 tokens on this card when I was starting the game. I love this card. It was my original, first deck. I used to, back when I wasn't great at the game, which we'll talk to, I used to have one deck that I would rely on, and it was my Patriot Legion deck. It was so much fun. I loved it so much. And sadly, Patriot's fallen by the wayside. I think Patriot needs the treatment they gave to Cerebro, but not the +3, the going down a cost. I think Patriot needs to cost 2. You're asking for so much investment now for just a +2 buff. I mean, V-Hand is buffing cards that are created by Mirage, cards that are created by the Hood. Patriot also buffs the Hood, but cards like Moon Girl and all that stuff. And V-Hand can just go so much taller, and that card is a 2/3 that gives +2 with information asymmetry, whereas Patriot's a very face-up 3/2 that gives +2. That doesn't make any sense. I think you can play it a little bit safe and put this guy to 2/2 plus 2, and it would help him out significantly. I don't think it makes him great again, but I think it's a good first step in the right direction, and I'm excited to hear about Denish's support cards.
Well, I think I used to be a Patriot main. Like, it's a deck I used to hit Infinite with all the time. I went from Patriot to Sauron because I just like cards with no abilities. I played Patriot on Sauron Leech back in the day, and I think Ultron's like kind of the wedge that prevents Patriot from moving a lot, because I used to play really honest Patriot decks, which was Misty Knight on 1, Shocker on 2, Cyclops or Debris on 3, into like Patriot absorbing me on Surfer kind of stuff. But even with Brood, but it looks like all those cards are like 1 or 2 cards with no abilities, and all of a sudden Ultron exists, and it summons 8 cards with no abilities. So it's definitely a lever that Second Dinner needs to look at and be really careful about when changing stuff about Patriot. I don't know how to make Ultron weaker while, in order to enable Patriot's strengths to happen a little bit more, but it seems like they're kind of building Patriot to be able to go wide, not to go tall, and they're kind of forcing us into that like niche with Patriot.
Yeah, the rework I want to see for Patriot is +3, but also you have to look at Ultron. I think if you make the drones 1/1s, which I think they used to be, but also give them a little bit more base power, maybe put them to 6/10. I think that that would be a healthy change. I mean, I don't want to play against Patriot, but also, like, let's be honest, Patriot's not the worst thing that could be strong. It's very, very easy to deal with, and I mean, the route that I've always liked Patriot is like the Scarlet Spider, Wasp, not necessarily like Brood Absman. Yeah, those style decks. And I don't think that Patriot at 3/1+3 is that problematic with those cards. I think the only real issue with Patriot would be Ultron, because if you're playing Patriot Mystique and then Ultron, the drones you didn't put in nearly enough, or even like Patriot Mystique Moonstone. Now you're getting +4 on like 4 buffs. That's +12. And so if you're playing drones, maybe +12 is a little silly actually. But like currently we
Very
have
silly.
+8. Currently we have +8. So if you're committing your entire game plan to Moonstone, it might not be that bad. Maybe give Wasp an ability.
The
Maybe that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think alternative nerf on Ultron would be like, sometimes he also gets spawned randomly. So rather than summoning to fill the lanes, you could make it so he summons 3, and that punishes the game plan where like all you're doing is playing in one lane and then playing Ultron to fill everything else. I don't know if that removes like part of his identity or anything, but it does solve the being a 8x scaler with Patriot, right? Like, we don't want him to be an 8x scaler, essentially.
Yeah. The power nerf on the drones might not be enough, because I hadn't said +12 out loud until like a second ago. And yeah, +12's kind of
Yeah.
goofy.
Obviously,
Another,
it's still 8x.
yeah, it's 8x, but I think 8x at like +2 isn't that bad, which is why it's not really doing anything. Especially since your sandcastle gets stomped by like 3 tech cards. But another change I want to see is definitely Cosmic Ghost Rider to hit both sides. We mentioned it a little bit before, but I think that is a really cool release they could do. Once again, Cosmic Ghost Rider is a 5/7, I think, or 5/8, that removes the abilities of the front row of your opponent's location that he's played in.
It could be a Sauron card.
Yeah, it would be really cool if it hit your slots as well. But I don't know if that's a change they're going to make, because they seem to be taking a more power-based approach to a lot of their balance changes, where it's directly like, oh look, Cerebro is massive now, or oh look, I don't even know what else, Hela's a 6/9. That's the change we made. A lot of it's like, yeah.
So there's two main things I kind of want to talk about here. First of all, you mentioned Patriot going to +3. I don't like playing against Cerebro. A lot of people don't like playing against Cerebro. It's so tall. Do we really want to deal with Patriot being +3 for a significantly less opportunity cost than Cerebro, which has extremely major deck building restrictions. Patriot is just kind of like, yeah, I can run a few cards and then I'll throw in like even that just like Squirrel Girl. Like you could just run Squirrel Girl and all of a sudden Squirrel Girl is a 1/9 and that's with no other boosts. Just by playing Patriot, Squirrel Girl is a 1/9. Thing is a 4/10 vanilla. Thing is like playable with Patriot going at +3. That's insane to even say. I think that +3 is a little bit too much. I do want to see this guy as either a 2/3 or a 2/2 +2. I think lowering him down a spot on the curve. +2 power is definitely not nothing. V-Hand has proved that, especially with a card that makes it easier for you to fit like a Mystique in on curve and a Moonstone on curve, because a lot of your cards are going to be generated on board as opposed to generated in hand, so you're allowed to invest a little heavier in the Patriot buffs themselves. I think that Patriot isn't as far off to being good. I think it needs two things mainly. I think it needs just the 2 cost on the card itself. I think the card can't cost 3. And I think it needs just 1 or 2 more support cards. Cosmic Ghost Rider that hits both sides would be amazing. Something that like maybe like a card that stole all the abilities from your cards there. Sort of like a stealing Super Scroll called like Siphon Scroll or something, where you play it and it takes all the abilities from your cards there, in the sense that like I play it on a lane with like a Dazzler and an Ancient One, and it steals the on reveal ability, but it doesn't like play it. Something like that. It just copies the text but doesn't repeat the on reveal or gets the ongoing. Something like that where it just siphons the abilities and removes the text from the other cards there but takes them in itself. I think that Patriot would want another support card, something like similar to that.
I think that's a really cool idea of taking all the abilities in the lane and giving it to one card. I want to know what Zen thinks. I think the only thing that breaks this is Electro. Xenaid is more likely to find a way to break this. What do you think about a card that takes all the abilities from the cards in the lane and gives it to your opponent's card? So
Oh
like
boy, Sora's about to pop the fuck off because those cards are so bad. Like,
Have any
the,
more?
the instant like lose condition is immediately Ebony Maw, War Machine, Electro stuff, because that's just toxic. Like you're giving Electro, you're giving Ebony Maw, and then you get to play an Infinite as well. And oh boy, like it's not even a Sauron Patriot card at that point. It's just an instant toxicity card. I like the concept of our Cosmic Ghost Rider kind of recenter. I think if someone has it in at second dinner, we should just pitch it. Hopefully they can change it before the card actually releases. Because it would be such an interesting design space. Rather than just having it be a tech card, also having it be an enabler. It'd be so cool, I think. And like no one's gonna complain if like Sauron needs more support. No one's gonna complain if Electro gets more support, you know? I think that's actually a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, so Patriot overall, I mean, yeah, I absolutely want more support cards for Patriot. I think maybe don't make them as toxic as that. I think giving the ability of Electro to your opponent is awful, even if you make it like a 5/3. I mean, it's just old Sandman. Maybe even rework Electro, because nobody really plays that card for the ongoing ability anyways. People just blow it up. Make Electro not ongoing or something. Maybe you can only play one card until turn 6 or something stupid like that. I don't even know. But yeah, Patriot absolutely needs a buff. Lots of ways to do it. I don't know why they haven't. I think they tried with 3-2, but like that's not an honest attempt. Let's be honest. Not even
It's
not even
not.
close.
If they really wanted to try it, it would be a 2 cost.
Yeah. Or they would have given it the Cerebro treatment. I don't understand how we can make Cerebro that and then also make Patriot a 3-2. And like it's the same balance team. Like I understand not wanting to make Patriot ridiculous because it's very very easy, but like come on. 3-2 is an insult to anyone who enjoys Patriot and wants it to be better. That's obviously not what the problem is.
We all love Patriot, and we all want to see it get better. But we're going to end today's podcast with a little bit of improvement. We've talked about these archetypes and how they could use their own improvement. And so, we at the Cube Circus have time traveled back 3 years to ask the Washington Post how we can improve at Marvel Snap. We've talked about how the cards can improve, but how about us? So I'm going to read some points from this article, which was published on December 29th, 2022. So here are the tips they said. They said the first tip is you need to understand the abilities of the card. Very important. If you don't know what the Sauron card does, you shouldn't really play that card. It's going to take away your Iron Man. There's a couple, it talks about like the different sets of abilities. It talks about Dracula Hela, and talks about like Destroy and Apocalypse and basically a ton of stuff. It then talks about learning the pillars of smart Marvel Snap play, which unlike Xenaid would suggest is not snap, 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 don't retreat. It asks you to anticipate your opponent, play the locations, and have an ideal play order, which are all fairly like really good tips. I mentioned those, most of those in my video that I published about the top 10 Marvel Snap tips that you need to learn. It tells you learn when to snap and when to retreat. Very important. Uncertain about your turn 6 play, worried your opponent has a trick up their sleeve. There's honestly, for an article that's 2 years old and from a source that I did not expect to be writing about Marvel Snap, and considering this is the Washington Post, which is a pretty prestigious newspaper, I found it pretty decent. But aside from that, what are our tips to improve in Marvel Snap and get better?
Snap every game. I think too many people care too much about win-loss. So my snap every game mentality, I don't know if like everyone here has watched me play the game. I have a blast whether I'm winning or losing, and I think that needs to be like the first thing, which you need to detach yourself from the humanly restraints of game cube loss. Because only then will you be, like, unironically, only then will you be able to play for, like, for the experience of learning, right? And I think it's really valuable that you're able to do that in a Marvel Snap game. Because you can learn, like, what are the correct lines. You can stay on turn 6 without the worry, like, is this the correct play or not? Because you're doing it for experience. And I think it's probably one of the most valuable things you can do as a Snap player.
I know Zen said it a little bit as a joke, but I actually don't fully disagree with snap every game as a mentality. I don't think you should do it because, like, turn 1 snap every game isn't necessarily the call. Learning when to snap is still really important, but if you're learning a new deck, you can weaponize the snap mechanic and you can, like, almost feel out what people are scared of. You can feel out what lines are actually strong because you're going to stay until your game's through, like, turn 6. You can feel out like what people think your power output is based on what they're playing around. There's a lot of, when you're playing a deck that isn't necessarily the top meta deck of the week, everyone's playing it. There's a lot of mind games that you almost have to figure out when you're learning the list, where it's almost a matter of, okay, I need to stay just to learn. And you get a lot of value from snapping and staying, even if it's not necessarily actually the right thing to do. As long as you can acknowledge it's not the right thing to do, if you're trying to improve as a player, staying even when it's not necessarily correct isn't the worst thing, because it's not like you can't get those snap points back. Like, it's not hard to get the snap points back once you fall below the level that you're actually supposed to be at as a player. If you are a player who hangs around 7,500 SP for 3 months, and then you need to improve, I think you should absolutely play worse to get better. Like, worse stays to learn. Because if you drop to 7,000 SP, your issue isn't going to be climbing back up to 7,500. Your issue is going to be getting past 7,500 to 8,000. And so being able to take a temporary loss to learn that's a really good way to learn the game.
So I'll begin with the story here. So we're going to start at December of 2023. Now, at this point, I had been playing Snap for about a year now, and I hit a few infinites. My first infinite was in March of that year, and I believe I hit it 2 or 3 more times that year. But the point is that I did not really know how to hit infinite consistently, and I wasn't really playing well. In that December, I didn't hit infinite, and I was mad at myself because I wanted to hit infinite because I wanted that card back that month, and I decided that the next season I was going to play a lot, but most importantly, I was going to get better. And the 3 main ways that I did that was: 1, listen to people that are better than you at the game. This is probably the #1 tip I can give for anybody that's seriously looking to get better at the game. There are people better than you at the game. You should listen to them. What's it called? I've been good friends with Roram Plays for about around a year, and he was around placing regularly in the top 500. He wasn't by any means like the best player in the game, but he was pretty good at the game, and I was pretty bad. And he helped me a lot with like decks and play lines and stuff. And I started to learn, and I started to really pick up what he was putting down, and I really started to climb. I went from the dumpsters of below 7,000 SP all the way up to on the verge of 8,000. And by then I started to really start getting it. And then I started playing more decks. I started playing some Darkhawk deck that I wanted to play, and I hit top 500 for the first time, and I was very proud of that. I wasn't really able to replicate that success until later that month, where I have the second tip I have for you: master the deck you're playing with. You should be knowing all of your playlines in the deck. I played a lot of Surfer up to that point. I was working on a lot of different builds of Surfer pretty much since Fastos released in the June of the season. The next season was July. Copycat came out. It was like the missing piece to my list. I knew how to play Surfer well, and I just started climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing, and it felt like nothing could stop me. And I ended up reaching the top 100 and 9,000 SP for the first time. I was so happy about that, and it was very good. But then, I couldn't replicate that success again, and I wanted to get even better. So after a break that I took because I was getting a little bit tired of the economy of the game and just the game in general, I started watching some more Twitch for the game, and I started talking to players like Denish about ramp. I started talking and viewing Husky Puppies, who's a very good player, and I got even better. And as I continued to get better, I eventually hit the heights that I really wanted to hit, which was like consistent top 100. I've finished in the top 20. I've done a lot of stuff at the top of Infinite. I've piloted a bunch of decks. I've started building a ton more decks, and a lot of them are now seeing some mainstream appeal. I know my IU deck, I see it a lot on ladder. The way to get better at the game is to learn from people that are better than you and to master what you're doing. If you have a full reign on the decks you're playing, and you are humble enough to realize you can get better, you're not the best, you can work on this, and you got it in the future, you can improve at this game fast. So my 2 biggest tips if you want to improve at this game: really learn the ins and outs of your deck, talk with others, do mock play lines, stay in games, or try to figure out how the interactions work in your deck. Where are you getting the most power? What are your most powerful lines? What should you snap on? What's a clear sign of a retreat? What's a bad hand? What's a good hand? Learning all of that stuff, and also just talking to people better than you. Just learning the cube equity, learning when they're snapping, when they're retreating, what they're doing. Here's the play lines, all this stuff, and eventually, you can go from somebody who did not hit infinite to somebody that's regularly placing in top 100 and 9,000 SP every season.
Yeah, based in real. Also follow the Snap Academy YouTube channel for best tips to improve. I mean, you hear us talking about the game. Surely you have to get better at it eventually, right?
Yeah, I mean it's like brute force knowledge into your head. Eventually you'll pick something up. You got it, man. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. That's what Smlz's line is, right? All right. Before we end the podcast, I want to touch on 3 tips that are actually in the Washington Post article. This was written December in 2022. So I mean, the guy's name is Nick Stat. This guy's ahead of his time. He reached the highest level, and I want to hear how he did it. And so one of the tips he said was play the locations. Locations are the most important element. Try to include at least one card from your deck that can transfer power to lockdown locations. I want to know what you guys think about that, because I think the way that people play locations isn't necessarily optimized, even like top players, where not necessarily Nightcrawler into a lane, but it almost feels like people, if they see Nexus, especially people who aren't necessarily at the highest level yet, people don't look at Nexus and immediately think of what they're going to do with Nexus. They almost get there later. Whereas I think it's very important to plan out, oh, it's a Nexus game. I'm going to change my entire play plan to deal with this Nexus. What do you guys think?
Well, the answer is Juggernaut. Juggernaut is location tech. I mean, I guess like Nexus, talking about pretty much also borrowed no name. Juggernaut's good location tech. I do think that playing the locations is an extremely important part of Snap, though. It's why a card like Legion is so good. It's why Nocturne was such a design issue and a flaw at 3-5 that I will not get into today, but maybe in a future episode. It's why Merlin is a little bit busted because of the location spell. Playing locations, managing locations, trying to figure out what you want to do with the locations. If you know your opponent's going to change, that your opponent might change the Nexus, do you play around them changing it, or do you play around them not changing it? It's just, locations are a very big mind game, in a sense, when it comes to Snap. So I think that if you're playing the locations, you're playing your opponent's mind. You're trying to think a step ahead of them as well. I mean, I don't think getting power into lockdown locations is the best way to put it, but I do think that knowing what you're going to do with the location when it's flipped. Savage Land, I want to Legion this. If I have Madripoor, I want to get my Human Torch for steps or my Captain Carter on there so it gets an extra buff. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Marvel Snap is a game with so few pieces that it's important to process every single bit of information that the game gives you. So location-wise, there are 3 locations every game and 12 places you can place your units. And so it's really important to like allocate that well and know like how the cards in your deck interact with locations. For example, like when there are lockdown locations like Sanctum, or if there's a Bar with No Name, or even just like Kiln, Juggernaut loses a lot of value, right? So like I see people holding Juggernaut in their hand until turn 6. I'm like, no, you want to blow it early. So like there's just interactions like that like increase the strength or decrease the strengths of cards. Like if you want to learn like a good player from a bad player, watch them play an Elysium game, because a good player will play an Elysium game to maximize the value of their hand every single time. A bad player often goes like, my cards are free, let's play them all. Ha ha ha. Yeah, so I think it's just a lot of information to process, and it's really not explored enough, like how to best play according to the random set of 3 locations that flips in front of you.
I absolutely agree with what you said about almost having a plan as soon as you see the location flip. This is another thing that Stat touched on a little bit when he wrote this article 3 years ago. The next tip is have an ideal play order. What he's talking about is, for instance, play Patriot into Mystique and finish off with Ultron, but keep Onslaught in the deck with plenty of no ability cards as a backup, or like play Storm into Juggernaut or Maximus, and then power up both with Silver Surfer. Well, that's a little bit outdated because Maximus isn't a 3-cost, of course. But the general idea that he's getting at is when you enter a game, you should be able to understand the priority that each of your cards have and which cards should be played more importantly than others. An example of that I think Smlz can touch on is in his V-Hand deck. When do you play V-Hand? When do you play Misery? When do you play Infinity Ultron? When do you play Luna? You need to go into the match understanding, okay, what is the most important thing for me to do, and what are the backup lines that I need to worry less about. I'll let Smith touch on that first, because I know the V hand list he plays deals with that a lot.
Sauron to me next.
All right. So with V hand, the number one thing, just like in a V hand, your number one priority with a V hand deck is how many V hands can I get? Can I get one? Can I get two? Can I get three? Can I get four? Those are the four main numbers of V hands you're gonna get. You're either getting the absolute high roll with a V hand is you're getting a V hand that's your one that started in your deck. You're getting a copied V hand from Frigga, and then you're getting two extra V hands from Tal Mandala. You're getting four. That's your supreme high roll. If you can't get four, you can get three. Some shenanigans like Misery, a Frigga to copy another V hand, something like that. Then two, just V hand Frigga, and then your low roll, which is one. Based on how many V hands you have different game strategies. If you have four V hands, you're trying to get as much generated cards as possible because those cards are all getting +8, and +8 is amazingly huge. If you have 3 V hands, you're still trying to get a ton of generated cards, but maybe you want to lean into more like I'm going to play my IU because I might need like a 5/12 if I get a Power Stone, or I might need to disrupt my opponent with something like a Space Stone, or I just need bigger body V hand targets. If you have 2, you're really looking for the backup plans, or you're just looking to get a ton of demons. You're looking for IU, you're looking for demons. And if you only have 1 V hand, then you're looking at IU, please save me. IU just like saving a Misery for turn 6 and getting Quinjet IU and just praying for the Power Stone and just going double Power Stone into just completely putting all your other generated cards in one lane and saying 24 wins this lane and I'm just committing all my other power to this other lane. Just even something like that. I think that with a deck in your play lines, V-Hand, especially my IU version, you're looking at how many V-Hands you can get and you're sort of weighing, do I need the IU high rolls or do I need the created cards? And IU is always great, but sometimes you can get more created cards by not going with IU because you can like do like Hood Misery and get 2 created cards that turn with a Mirage that you're also getting a created card from, or with a Frigga that you're also getting a created card from. So I really think that when you're sort of looking at the V-Hand deck, it's like you have 4 sections. You have created cards, and maybe IU. You have IU and created cards, and then you have IU Please Save Me. It's sort of like a backup thing, where IU is the obvious backup get out of jail free card, but also it's definitely something that keeps you in the game, and you really need to evaluate sort of when do I need IU, when do I need demons and Mirage cards.
You can find out more on the Snap Academy YouTube where Smith goes in depth in the with the interactions. But I think most importantly, I think with like play order, like your deck there's only 6 different costs in a deck for Marvel Snap, right? So you want to really make sure that like on any given turn, like turn 1, 2, or 3, there's at least like 2 overlapping plays you can have. You can play one of your 1 costs, like either one, like a Sauron deck has Sauron or Zabu. Like I think the ultimate like turn 2 decision for most players right now is Mr. F or Surge. Like it's just these are questions that you have to answer as a Marvel Snap player, and therefore it's necessary to get better at the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what Zen touched on a little bit, and Smlz also touched on it, where you are almost sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let me restart. I like what Zen and Smlz touched on, where oh my goodness. Oh yeah, you almost enter the game with this in mind. This is not something you do necessarily every time during the game. This is something you need to do coming into the game, and if you're playing the deck and you've already thought of. And I think it's very important to be able to recognize these things ahead of time. One more point that Mr. Stat touched on from the Washington Post 3 years ago is prepare for meta shutdowns. This is a super interesting one. What he's talking about is if you're basically popular strategies tend to invite aggressive counters. The strength of Marvel Snap's tech cards, combined with its small deck size, means you can't rely on one card to win games consistently. So it's important to build in backup plans. And if you are losing to a card like Shang, it's almost good to try to bait it out early so that you can deal with it after, and you can retain your deck's edge on turn 5 and 6. What do you guys think about dealing with these super strong tech cards like a Red Guardian or a Mobius or a Shang?
I think that this guy is honestly doing a really good job at his tips. I mean, the only thing it reminds me of is there's somebody I played in a tournament, Dennis Hall. I don't know who that is, but they were also pretty insightful when I talked to them post game. But I think that the tech cards are very powerful in Snap, and having the backup plans is good. I think the best example of having the backup plans for the tech cards in this is that Mr. Negative list that run Rogue. Because Negative, everybody knows, Negative is super weak to Mobius. And what Negative's biggest weakness is, I think, a player with that's playing Negative, they don't want to see the Mobius on something like turn 5 in a 6-turn game, just because they have no way of stopping it. If they're running Rogue, they're more likely, I think, to want to see a Mobius on 3 or 4 that they can Rogue, as opposed to one that they can't. And even then, it's like they're trying to bait out the Mobius early in a sense, so that they can have it be a target to Rogue, as opposed to you're sort of not, you're playing the Mobius late, and then they can't Rogue it, and then they can only play one card on turn 6, and they can't really play another one. I think that adapting and watching sort of the adaptations that certain decks make to play against certain tech cards. I know on Snap Academy's YouTube channel, we just posted Xenaid's in-depth guide to Sauron, and he did a whole segment on Shang-Chi and sort of the stopping of Shang-Chi. And one thing I think was very interesting is that in the One Trick tournament, which was recently held and we definitely covered, Xenaid ran a Goliath and a Sauron list, which I think is very, very interesting in the sense that there wasn't a lot of Shang in that format, but Goliath and the Sauron list is very interesting because a lot of people, when they see the Sauron, they're instantly Armor Cosmo out of their head. Juggernaut's in their head, but they're not, I think, going to play around it significantly well, especially if Xenaid uses it already, and sort of like baiting out the Juggernaut early so you can maybe Goliath later. But I think that the sort of premise of protecting your own cards with tech cards, or maybe he's trying to bait out a Shang early to try to Juggernaut the Shang away. There's a lot of very interesting dynamics that you can play to sort of dodge the tech cards in this game and sort of react proactively and reactively to them. Like, if you know Shang is coming down, you can definitely play the Goliath and stop it, or a Juggernaut and stop it. I think there's a lot of different ways you can interact with the tech cards in this game. I think the writer makes a very good point here.
Yeah, I do like what you talked about, Negative being able to almost deal with Mobius by baiting it out early. I want to go a little bit more into depth into that specifically. I know that not a lot of people play Negative, but this is to give people almost thoughts for their own decks. So, I mean, obviously, in a situation where I'm going to have to deal with this is Stardust, but a lot of decks have issues like this where I don't necessarily think it's the best thing for the game, but we don't have to get into that right now. We talked about that last week. A really strong thing that Negative can do is mess around with when they play Magic, because if they're gonna Mobius on 5, if you Magic on 5, you can turn the Mobius off. So, and then still have a turn 7 play. And if they're not gonna Mobius on 5, then you can just make your play turn 6. And so you're still getting your cubes against your counter deck. Another way to do it would be to make your really strong play on turn 5, so that even if they Mobius you, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, Negative wants to be really aggressive with, like, oh, let's play Jane Foster and then have 3 free cards in her hand and then go way over the top. But you don't really need to go way over the top every game. An inverted gore into a Mystique is oftentimes enough. And so if you can play the regular Gore on 5, even with a Ravona discount, you're still going to be able to go really, really tall, even though you're more susceptible to other tech cards. So it's important to be able to recognize, oh, this guy definitely has Mobius, or this guy definitely has Enchantress, because a lot of decks don't run both. And if they're running Mobius, that means they spent 3 energy for 3 power. You don't need to go 50 power in 3 lanes to beat someone who just played a 3/3 on turn 4 or 5. Like, they're not going that tall. So being able to adapt your play lines to be, okay, I don't need to kill this guy and like smite him into outer space. I can just beat him by a margin that's more reasonable and almost hedge my bets from Mobius. I want to know what Zen thinks about this almost dealing with tech cards situation, especially because he plays Sauron and has to deal with Chang, before we wrap up the podcast.
Yeah, so the good thing about tech card players is false sense of confidence is really a killer in Marvel Snap, where like they just think they're gonna win because they have the tech card. So you can like kind of mind control these players, and just being like you've heard of Shang Brain, you've heard of Juggernaut Brain, you probably heard of Fenris Brain too. Like there's just certain cards that swing smash up so much that there's really nothing the matchup can do against it, except when you're actually a good player and you're experienced in playing around it. It's actually the easiest thing in the world to play around. So I think I purposely play 20 power in a lane just to make it the juiciest Shang lane possible, because it's really easy to play around tech when you know where it's gonna go, right? Same thing with like Enchantress in like V-hand decks. If you know they're running it, like sometimes you just like jiggle it out there, and then you're like, okay, well you blew your Enchantress, because the most powerful thing about playing against tech decks is knowing that they have it, right? That's why I advocate for snapping aggressively, because if you know they have it, it's really easy to play around it. Tech brain is a real disease.
Well, that about concludes the 6th episode of the 8 Cube Circus. You can find Denish at twitch.tv/DenishHella. You can find Xenaid at twitch.tv/XenaidTFT. And you can find me at youtube.com/@SnapAcademyYT. I also might start streaming more, albeit at a pretty low quality because my laptop can't handle much, at twitch.tv/SMLZTTV. Thank you for watching. You can find myself and Xenaid's a lot of deck breakdowns, a lot of informational content on the Snap Academy YouTube channel. I think Denish also might have some contributions coming his way soon enough. We thank you for watching. I know it's a bit of a long podcast, but there was a lot we needed to get into. And we will see you later.